The Minimal Company never notified me of my tracking number from the post office like they said they would, but I did get a mysterious package from Leon one day. I opened it up on camera because I didn't know what to expect. Well, the sticker on the side that says Fusion and 6 plus 128 gigabytes kind of gave it away, along with the picture of a keyboard phone. Here it is finally, my Minimal phone. Inside the box, I have a thank you note from Andre and Armin, and a QR code to link me to the Quick Start guide. Here's the phone itself, a SIM tray tool, the USB-C charge cable, and the charging brick rated at 5 volts, 2 amps output. That makes it a 10-watt wired charger, but it comes with 15-watt wireless charging. So the wireless charging is faster than wired charging, according to the spec. Before I get started, many people are going to ask why I paid $399 for a black and white phone with such low specifications. First, putting price aside, it's a purpose-built phone for those who want the e-paper display and the keyboard. You could make a comparison to the types of cars people buy. Why would someone pay for a slow gas-guzzling pickup truck when they can get a sports car that goes faster, looks flashier, and has better gas mileage? Because the pickup truck can do more for the owner in terms of cargo capacity, towing ability, and ruggedness, which is probably what the owner wants. I wanted a Kindle for its e-paper display so I could read on the go. So if I was going to be carrying around another device for reading, I might as well have one with more functionality to offload some of the tasks of my main phone, such as Android Auto or listening to podcasts and music. Others might want to use it for its intended purpose of creating friction to get to social media and try to kick their social media addiction. I do find the price a bit on the steep side, but it's not obscene. Now let's get back to the phone. Holding the device, the materials feel cheap and flimsy, unfortunately. It's very similar to my budget $150-ish Yumi DG phones. Look at the back flexing as I remove the IMEI sticker. The sides and buttons feel very plasticky. The display has a matte finish though, and it does look kind of nice, but I wasn't sure if it's glass or plastic, although another reviewer claims it's glass and even ran a razor through it. That gave me the confidence to do the same, and it turns out to be actually glass. I appreciate inclusion of the features like a headphone jack and the micro SD card storage. There are mics on top and bottom for stereo recording. Test it here if you have stereo headphones on. You can hear the sound separation. Testing left side microphone. Testing right side microphone. Left side, right side. But output on the phone itself will be a single bottom firing speaker. The power button is on the right side, and Androids are now set up to use this as the assist trigger, but you can set this back to function as a power key as it's supposed to be, which brings up the restart options. Volume buttons are on the left side, along with the manual refresh key and quick screen settings trigger, which you will find you will be using quite frequently. I chose the Fusion version of this phone, which is the white case with black screen bezels. However, the white buttons make it hard to read in lighted conditions if the backlight is on, even at its most minimal setting. It looks fine if it's off. If I could do it again, I would probably just get the Onyx full black version. The navigation buttons are not lighted, however, and in dark rooms, it's a bit of a guess where it is. Backlighting and material feel aside, I do like the way it looks. First, let's look at the biggest draw of this phone, the display. You will have some challenges with this display to get a good user experience. This is a 800 by 600 e-paper display. DPI is at 230 ppi. That's pixels per inch. And it's this value that's a concern. The Kindle Reader and the Books Palmas 1 and 2 all have e-paper displays that come in at 300 dpi. And although not an e-paper display, the older Unihertz Titan has a 441 dpi display. So I do notice that the texts are not as crisp and sharp as other phones I've been using before. But it's still good and usable, but it is noticeable. You'll want larger text to make up for the lack of crispness. At the same time, you will have to balance it out with how much information you want visible on the screen. Text that is too large will take up too much space on the screen, forcing you to have to scroll more to see the whole picture. Add to this the 3:4 portrait aspect ratio that is shorter than the average smartphone, which is 9:16. Then There's the grayscale viewing of the Android apps, which are not going to be optimized for the e-paper display. Simple text in black and white can come through fine, but many apps that mix in colored text, those might be displayed as gray on top of white or gray on top of black, depending on your theme. So to get the best view to suit your needs, you'll need to make some adjustments to the user interface. On the operating system level, you can toggle dark mode or light mode pretty much like every Android. And under settings, display, then display size and text, you can adjust your font size and display size. Here is the settings the phone came with out of the box. Font size at 1 notch up and display size at the center. Bold and high contrast text are both toggled on. I pretty much leave this setting alone from the manufacturer on most phones, but on this phone it will play an important role on how it affects your experience. For the screen refresh and lighting, you get the quick settings app you can pull up from any screen by long pressing the screen refresh key on the side. You get screen backlight, color temperature, and keyboard backlight sliders. Below that are 3 presets, looks like fire, ice, night, and a custom setting. To save your custom setting, adjust the sliders to your liking and then hold the wrench icon to save it to that preset. Below that, you have your refresh speed settings. Slow, hybrid, which is supposed to adjust to a higher refresh while you're scrolling, and then the ultra, which reduces screen flashing and everything refreshes very fast. Lastly, you can toggle the color inversion from the pull-down notifications panel for a quick flip of the color scheme. I forgot where it was out of the box, but I made sure it was on the first 4 visible so I could get to it easily. If you don't see it, pull down your notification panel twice, hit the edit icon, and drag the color inversion to the first 4. You may also want the dark mode and font size buttons for easy access. Looking at the minimaphone's keyboard, I'd like to compare it to the BlackBerry Passport and the Unihertz Titan because of the similar form factor. I like the feel of the BlackBerry Passport the best. There are no gaps horizontally with a small gap vertically between the rows. The contoured buttons give it a great feel when you're moving your fingers across them, and it helps you find the best location to press down on the key. The clicks feel much better at the fingertip level than the fully flat keys of the minimalphone. The Titan does a good job mimicking the BlackBerry, although the pushes are slightly mushier and the contours are not as well defined to the touch. Likely it's a BlackBerry patent type of thing. In my opinion, the Minimal's keyboard is good with the clicky feel and decent key sizing, which makes up for the lack of contours and the design of the fully separated keys. The keys are not touch sensitive though, so you won't get any of the swipe gestures like the Titan or BlackBerry. As far as the layout is concerned, having the Alt key above the Shift key took some getting used to, but that's okay. There are Shift keys on both sides and that's helpful. Spacebar does feel a bit sloppy if pressed dead center. You'll feel a double click, but on the edges it's only 1. It'll only register as 1 press though. A single click gets you 1 capitalization. Double clicks puts it into caps lock. The status is visible on the virtual keyboard's rightmost corner. The same functionality applies to the Alt key. The SIM key brings up a virtual keyboard of numbers, symbols, and emojis of various types. A little bit too much for my taste, especially if this is supposed to be a minimal phone. On the far left side, virtual keyboard is your history of which SIM keys you've been using for quicker access. You can't delete these or move these around or lock the ones you want in place. I would have liked a 10-key virtual keyboard for numbers and financial symbols, but it's not here. For the settings, you have your typical automatic caps lock, double space for period, and spell check. Notable settings include this swap, the voice dictation key, and period. So if you want voice dictation, you have to hit Alt and then the mic. I enabled this swap because I accidentally hit it more often than I'd like while typing, and I like to use the manual periods more often for the things I type. You can set up the max number of suggestions appearing on the suggestion strip, but they are not evenly spaced out, so smaller suggestions need more precise finger tapping. There's an option to add new words to your dictionary, but then there's a minimal mode of enhanced prediction, but there's no explanation for this. I'll just leave both off. Next comes the accented characters toggle, and this lets you hold down your key to bring up a list of accent options. You also choose which language template to be active, as seen here. Below are some timing values for long presses and double clicks on the modifier keys. I left these as default values. For the physical keyboard settings, you can change the physical keyboard's layout in software. For example, you can change it from the QWERTY layout to the French AZERTY, even though the physical keys remain at the QWERTY, obviously. Here's an option to show the virtual keyboard or not. There's a list of keyboard shortcuts that I don't think applies to the keyboard on the phone, since there's no search or tab on the physical keys. Lastly, there's an option to change how the modifier keys behave, although the only one applicable here would be the Alt key. I left these alone. The typing experience has been good, as with any physical keyboard, you'll need to get used to it to get better and faster. The only issue I've noticed is that the modifiers get activated even outside of a text input box. For example, if you accidentally hit the Sim key, say in the launcher or in some other app, the symbol's virtual keyboard will be active the next time you enter the text entry box. Less obvious is if you hit the Alt key outside of a text box and then you start typing somewhere else, you'll get a number instead of the character you intended to type. Just something to be aware of. Now let's look at how it affects some of these apps, and how tuning the app can also affect how it looks on your phone. First, we'll start with WhatsApp by request. Here's how it looks like with the settings from the factory out of the box with dark mode turned on. Let's do a quick switch off of dark mode back to light mode. As you can see, some of the text is already hard to read because it's showing a gray text on top of a white background. Look at the WhatsApp on the top. Let's switch it back to dark mode for easier viewing. You'll also notice some of the text has an outline on it. Let's see if there's any app settings we can adjust. Down under chats, we can adjust the font size. Let's try large. That didn't seem to make much of a difference. Let's go into the system settings and adjust the font size, and also the display size to my preferred setting of the first notch. I also like to remove the bold text. It still looks exactly the same. There's no difference here. Let's do a quick refresh to clear the ghosting. Let's go inside of a chat to see if the text sizing makes any difference there. I sent myself a text message. The font sizing still looks the same, no difference here. I think it's just fixed for this app. Let's take a look at some of the chat themes available. Putting a background in the chat window gives it a little bit of a different look. It doesn't look too bad, especially because every message has a bubble around it. Looking at the chat color, we can't even see what's available because I think it just makes all the dark colors black. Toggling off the dark theme actually makes it looks a little worse. The color inversion toggle doesn't really help either. Looks like a simple black background and the regular text is fine. Just try not to do anything fancy. That's usually how it is with this phone. The simpler the better. Now let's take a look at Google Messages, which is the default text messaging app. Here's how dark mode looks like. It looks simple and easy to read. Let's wipe the screen and clear off this extra message. Here's how light mode looks like for this app. I would say that's a bit worse because now it's showing the text on top of a white background, and to me it's less clear than the white text on the black background. Here's how inside a chat would look like. I think I'll just switch it back to dark mode. I'll send myself a message and clear the ghosting on the screen. I'm going to put it to the largest system-wide font size available. And you can see the system notifications text has gotten a lot bigger. And your text inside the messages chat is noticeably bigger than before. It does make everything a little bit easier to read because it's larger now, but now your system text is a little bit too large, as you saw earlier from the notifications text. Let's see if there's any settings for the app text size instead. Which there isn't any, but I remember on this app you can pinch to zoom in and out to make the text larger or smaller within the chat itself. And yes, that does work. Here's how attachments would look like if you wanted to attach an image. For this app, I'm going to leave it at my preferred font size, which is in the middle. And then if I need to, I'll pinch to zoom in and out to make the text easier to read. And similar to WhatsApp, a simple black background, white text, keep it simple, and it's very usable. Another popular chat client is WeChat. Here it is running in dark mode because my system setting is dark mode. Right away, I noticed the fonts is very small, especially the items on the bottom, and the chat text is barely readable. Let's switch out to the light mode and see how that looks like. And similar to the other apps, the white background with a black text is harder to read. I still prefer the dark mode like the others. Now, if we go into the system settings and change the display size to something larger, let's see if the graphical display and the text on the bottom gets any larger. It does get a little bit bigger, but of course the system display will be oversized. Let's go back to dark mode. Inside the chat window, I can see the received messages fine, but the ones that I'm sending out on the right-hand side, they have a gray box with black text and a white outline on it. It makes it really hard to see. Take a look at how it actually looks like in color. On the screenshot, which is in color by the way, you can see that the gray box is actually green and there's supposed to be black text with a white shadow. Even that is not great to look at, but that's because of the high contrast text option being turned on. If we turn off the high contrast text, we lose the white shadow, which makes it actually look better. And of course, in the colorized screenshot, it looks fine just like a regular phone. So the best view would be no high contrast text and larger fonts, but that's not going to work well with the rest of the system. WeChat does have a easy mode, which makes everything bigger. So let me turn that on, but the difference isn't huge. You can see there is a slight difference, but everything is still overall smaller than what is useful. Even if we turn the system font size all the way up, the fonts are still very small relative to everything else on the phone. So this is at largest display size and largest font size. Now let's put everything back to my preferred choice and go back into WeChat, which is still running in the easy mode with the large fonts. And you can see it's not very large. And of all the texting apps I've looked at right now, this is probably the worst one in terms of sizing. Here's a stock ticker tracker app, WEBULL. First, we're going to look at it with the default settings out of the box. As you can see, there's only about 3.5 stock tickers visible from this screen at this setting. And the text has a black text with a white outline on it. And the smaller text is barely visible. Looking into the detail of a stock ticker, you can see that the chart is not fully visible, and also as it updates there's flashing on the number. Depending on if it's going up or down, you might get a black text with a white outline. While the large values are visible and easily read, the smaller values like you see here in the center is very hard to make out because of the outline. Now let's go back and put it to my preferred setting. Here we can see more of the chart, but the numbers still have that shadow that makes it hard to see. We'll take a look at some of the in-app options for the theme. Going into the quote preference under settings, we see there's a price display option, and in the color setting, there's a gray option instead of red and green for the direction of the price movement. Now going back into the ticker list, we can see it's a lot cleaner of a look without a lot of the numbers having outlines on them. There's still a little bit there, like the 24-hour symbol next to the stock company name, but otherwise it's a lot cleaner look. Switching it to the light view, looks like this app won't switch back and forth with the system settings, so we'll have to do this manually. And the light theme, again, just like the other apps, looks a little bit worse. There seems to be more of these outlined text, which makes it a little bit hard to read. So I'm going to switch it back to the dark theme. So in this case, dark theme comes through again for me. And with a minor adjustment to the in-app settings, it has a lot cleaner look. For social media, let's take a look at Instagram. I'm still running in ultra refresh mode, so there's no flashing while scrolling. Pictures as expected are in grayscale, and there's decent detail here. After switching to light mode, the only change is the background color, which is now white. Again, I think the text here is a little bit harder to read than the dark mode, so I'm going to switch it back. Adjusting the text size, the only noticeable change is the increase in the size of the comments. My regular setting is good enough for me here. So I'll set it back. What I notice is the icons on the side when you click inside of a post are not visible in bright scenes since the icons are white in color. I think this app is quite usable to get information you need on the post, but not a good way to enjoy eye candy or brain rot content. Mission accomplished for the minimalphone on this app. The Kindle app was one of the main reasons for me to use a phone like this, so here's a look at the app. Scrolling of the book covers has the flashing effect, but that can be fixed by using the ultra refresh. In the reading screen, you have the option for different page colors. Notice I have my time visible because I like to keep track of the time as I read. If I change the page color to the first choice, the time is barely visible, but the text got slightly darker. If you actually look at the colorized version of this screen from the screenshot, you can see that the first page color is white, while the second and third have a slight tint to it. The fourth is obviously black. The way the minimalphone renders the screen, the clock is only visible on the other three color choices. A black page with white text is a good option, and I use this one or one of the other two so that I could see the time while I'm reading. One last thing I notice is that the reading progress indicator is not visible. It seems like it's being cut off, but the text does flow correctly. You do get the complete page, and when you flip the page, it continues fine. The Google Maps app is also best viewed in the dark mode. Here's a view with the road going down the middle of the screen. If I switch over to the light mode, the road is barely visible, although the name of it is a little bit easier to read. Going back to the dark mode, here's another view where there's more text and roads on the screen. A side-by-side comparison gives you a better look at the difference. Let's take a look at how the aspect ratio affects certain apps. This is the HELIUM mobile app. Long explanation short, this app lets me earn rewards when I let it track my movement around my area. So down here is a listing of what's been tracked daily. If you notice, this app does not have a dark mode, so it's a bit hard to see. This is where the color inversion toggle to force reversal of colors help. Back to the list. Only one line of information is visible, and I must scroll through one line at a time. Now compare that to if I use this app on a typical smartphone with a longer aspect ratio. The listing is showing much more information, making it easier to read. Another situation that's a disadvantage with the shorter aspect ratio screen is shown with the app Pie Control. In short, this app provides an overlay where I can swipe from the corner of the screen to switch between apps from almost any screen. However, the default white pie sections make it hard to read on this phone. I'd like to set it to a black pie section like I do on my other phone. However, going into the settings and then trying to pick the color for the pie section, I cannot confirm my selection. There's supposed to be an OK button to click, as visible on my other phone. By design, the app does not allow me to move lower by scrolling, so there's no way for me to set this up here. Now let's look at the refresh rates and how it affects certain apps. Starting at the lowest refresh, we can see a lot of flashing while scrolling. And that's not limited to graphical screens like we saw on the Kindle book covers page. This is the Gmail app. You see a lot of ghosting here. Changing it over to Ultra, the flashing effect is gone and the scrolling is smoother. But you'll notice that the ghosting is still there. It's most noticeable here on the left side where the icons are. A manual refresh clears it out to show you how it's supposed to look like. Now let's try the hybrid mode. As you scroll, there's no flashing, but the ghosting is still there. However, if you give it a second or two, the screen seems to update itself and the ghosting is eliminated. But this is inconsistent between apps. I'll verify that it's still in hybrid mode. And now I'll open up Google Maps. I pan around the map and the ghosting appears from this road. However, the screen does not automatically refresh itself when I stop. It worked well in Gmail, but it did not work well under Maps. So to make the most of this display, some adjustments need to be made on the system level and on a per app level. But if you put in some effort, you can get very usable results. With the two biggest features already explored, let's do a quick look at how the rest of the phone functions. The minimal launcher. This launcher was designed for this phone and it uses a list of items you can run instead of the typical icon grid. These link to apps that came pre-installed like Google Keep for notes, Google Maps, the calculator, etc. You can long hold the item on the list to get the app info or to remove it from the list. To add an app to your list, go into the app list by swiping up, long holding the app and select Add. You can only have 8 items on the home page. To customize how it looks, long hold the home screen to get to the settings. You get a toggle to show the status bar on top, the date and time, a 12 or 24 hour clock, and the level of charge. For the item list, you can set the text size and alignment. There's an option to double tap the screen to lock your phone, and a notification toggle which places an asterisk next to the app where you have notifications for, such as if you have a new text message. There is a choice of what to show on the left or right pages of your launcher, so you can open up your choice of app to the left or the right. Here I set up swipe left for Kindle and swipe right for WEBULL. To get to your other apps, you can swipe up and you'll see a list of your installed apps. Or you can press a key on the keyboard to start an app search. However, with either way, it does not start you in the search box. So even if you hit the keyboard to start an app search, you'll have to touch the screen and then go back to your keyboard to start searching for the app. It would be better if it goes to the search box right when you hit the key. The app you want will auto-load if what you're typing results in only one hit. For example, I only need to type WEB to start WEBULL, as there are no other apps fitting those 3 characters. If you want an icon-based launcher, it comes with Quick Step, which is common in a lot of Chinese branded phones. An issue with this launcher that came with this phone is that the icons are black outlines. So if you have a black wallpaper, the icons won't be visible. So change it to a white colored wallpaper and now you can see the icons on there. It's a very basic launcher. You have your icon grid and then you have your app drawer. Or better yet, install your own favorite launcher and set it up the way you want it to. For the biometrics, there's only fingerprints. And as you've probably seen in other videos, the setting up of the fingerprint requires you to just keep tapping on the sensor without any visual feedback due to the way the screen refreshes, no matter which setting it's on for the refresh speed. It may or may not update on the screen. Just keep tapping until it's done. Once it's set up, the response is actually fast and one of the fastest I've used. For the cameras, you get a 16 megapixel for the rear and a 5 megapixel for the front. These take pictures and that's all I can say. The app is also very limited. On the top you have a settings which you can choose to switch it to a QR code scanner or just a normal camera. You can choose the flash mode and also an HDR mode. And then there's the front and rear camera toggle. One thing to note is that if you're aiming at a bright image, you may not even see that these icons are here. So aim it at a dark area if you need to make some changes. They should have put a black bar on there so that the icons are visible at all times. The front camera has no setting. Video capture is also possible. Here are some photo samples as it appears on the phone and the actual photo itself. The rear camera captures at 3456 by 4608 and 24-bit color. The video captures at 640 by 480 and 30 frames per second. The front camera captures photos at 1944 by 2592 at 24-bit color and also shoots video at 640 by 480, 30 frames per second. Android Auto runs fine. I paired and connected to it and I've been using it regularly with no GPS drops or lockouts. However, the backlight stayed on during this whole trip. On some sessions it wouldn't turn on, but the screen was unlocked. Other times it's unlocked and I try to lock it, it won't lock. So there's a lot of inconsistent behavior when Android Auto is running. Now here's a quick run through of a few tests. Sound test of the speaker playing YouTube. Also demonstrating slow refresh versus fast refresh.
In front of all the classmates. But again, there is absolutely nothing he could do, except to silently stand by for the judgment. The teacher called for the owner to walk up front and take back the watch. But surprisingly, the teacher continued with the lesson right after that, and did not disclose the student who stole it.
I'm comparing the speaker to my Motorola FINGERPHONE.
When it was his turn for the search, with his eyes closed, he felt that the teacher had reached her hand into his pocket and found the watch. Indeed, a few moments later, after the teacher had completed the check.
The speakerphone from a phone call.
Hi, thanks for calling your 24-hour Walgreens at the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Convention Center in Las Vegas. Para continuar en español, oprima 9.
Microphone test as I leave a voicemail to myself. Hi, I'm leaving a voicemail using my minimalphone to test its microphone. Hi, I'm leaving a voicemail using my minimalphone to test its microphone. 4G speed test compared to my other phone, limited to 4G also. And the Wi-Fi test. Battery life for me has been a solid 2 days. I use about 20 minutes of Android Auto, about an hour of reading my ebooks without the backlight on, a dozen or so notifications, and check my stocks a bit. Charging with the included 10-watt charger and cable takes about an hour if it's at 20%. I expected a little bit better battery life, but keep in mind this is only a 3000 milliamp hour battery. So 2 days is okay. Hopefully it can improve with future updates. So after a week of use, was it worth the wait and price? Well, I wouldn't say it's a bargain or the best thing that I ever got, but it does do what I needed to do. That was an ebook reader and Android Auto device, which offloads the tasks from my primary phone. I do use it for some emails, some messaging, and for those tasks, which are not graphically intensive, it works well, especially since it lets me type with the keyboard. Could I use this as my only phone? No, I can't. While it does make it less enjoyable for social media due to the screen, that also makes it difficult for all the other tasks other than reading ebooks. Things like shopping on Amazon or searching Yelp for somewhere to eat is also not enjoyable. I scanned a QR code at a restaurant to get the web page so I can order. That's just the way it worked over there. And it was not a pleasant experience as I struggled to make out the items on the page. Could it be done? Of course it could, but it is a frustrating experience. I would not even trust myself to navigate any banking app, as I might press the wrong button and do something with my money that I did not intend to do. Again, I don't have a social media addiction, so I did not use this for the intended purpose. I do believe you can kick the habit by changing on a mental level rather than depending on a device, but some people may need such a device to get a good start. But for me, I'm enjoying reading my ebooks, and I will continue to use it for this purpose along with Android Auto, despite the minor issues. I do enjoy typing emails and instant messaging on it too. I hope the info here helps you make a decision on whether or not this device is right for you.